This is episode 85 with Yahya Bakkar.
Welcome to the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast, the show that empowers you to become the hero of your life's journey. With your host, Brian Tier.
You are valuable because you exist. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast. This is your host, as always, Brian Tier, and those were the wise words of this week's guest, Yahya Bakkar. Now, before we get into the episode, a quick shout out to our sponsor. It's Rooster, which is the awesome alarm clock app that allows you to wake up to whatever you choose, whether that's voice notes from friends and family, inspiring channels, news headlines, sports headlines, and so much more. You can check that out on the Google Play Store or the App Store. And again, that's Rooster, Alarm, and Audio Treats. Now, onto this week's episode with Yaya. And Yaya is a motivational speaker, confidence coach, and a health educator who's spoken at Harvard, Georgia Institute of Technology, TEDx, and various other conferences and organizations. He's also the author of Beyond Motivation and The Ultimate Guide to Teen Life, and is trained with the top experts in psychology, physiology, and health. Born in Saudi Arabia, Yaya first traveled alone to the States at the age of 5. Like many people, he faced a few challenges growing up and struggled to find his own identity because he never got along with his father and never met his birth mother. Yet despite these circumstances, he did his best to put the missing pieces of his life back together by seeking professional help and finding his birth mother after being separated for over 2 decades. Yaya now focuses on helping people become more confident, and his inspiring story not only gives hope, but also reminds people never to give up on their dreams. In this episode, you're going to learn why fitting in robs you of true confidence, why we're not the ones leading the show, why fake it till you make it is a bullshit lie, the most important thing when it comes to building confidence, why new strategies don't work unless you know yourself first, and the best way to build a business today. As always, you can get the links and resources we mentioned in this episode at briantier.com/085. But for now, let's go hang out with Yaya. Welcome back, everyone, and a big welcome to today's guest. I'm speaking to Yahya Bakkar. Yaya, welcome to the Quarter Life Comeback.
Woo! Thank you for having me, Brian.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably the warmest reception I've ever got to that boring intro line. So people are probably like, "What the hell is this dude all about?"
Well,
so why don't we start there? Like, what are you all about? And why don't you tell us a bit about your quarter life story?
Oh man! All right, so that's a tough question to answer. So I'm all about translating value into action through people. And that's kind of what I do. My ultimate mission is to remind people of how valuable they truly are by reminding them that they're valuable because they exist. They're valuable without having to produce value. And so that has, professionally speaking, that has come in the form of me being a motivational speaker and confidence coach for the past 7 years. I've been traveling all around the world, speaking at high schools and colleges, sharing my life story about me being abandoned and disowned by both of my birth parents by choice. I wasn't an orphan, so they had a chance to be with me. And then I kind of hit rock bottom. I went through I guess a quarter life crisis, if you will, where I kind of didn't know who I was anymore, didn't know where I belonged. And if I'm being absolutely honest, I'm kind of still experiencing something to that capacity, but in the professional world, because I think, there are some differences between the personal and the professional, although they're intimately connected. But yeah, so I mean, we could go about this in many different ways. I could tell you how I started as a speaker. I could tell you what happened. But in a nutshell, that's kind of what I'm about. Everything that drives me is about reminding people of their value, whether that's in a relationship, whether they've got cheated on or they were broken up and they don't know They don't know who they are in the context of a relationship, or if it's in business, because I know, like, imagine you trying to be in a job or starting a career where you don't know your value, you don't know who you are, you don't know yourself. And that can be very, very nerve-wracking, confusing, and be a recipe for disaster. So that's kind of like my mission. That's what drives me day in, day out.
Yeah. And I still struggle with that same stuff most days. In fact, and I appreciate your honesty about it as well. But like I was going to say, I'm part of a group coaching program right now. And something we had to do, one of the challenges was record a video as if we were speaking to our 10-year younger self.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have been 18 at the time. And one of the things I said was like, you're going to think that you know what you're doing, but you still don't. And,
yes.
And I think it's like, I don't know if we ever really have things figured out, but I've become a lot more comfortable with that and like learning to just kind of go with the flow, still have goals and whatever that I'm working towards, but kind of let things happen as they naturally do and like, adjust from there.
I love it.
But let's like get a little bit into that story of you were growing up, and you grew up never having met your mom at all.
Right.
What was that experience like?
So, I mean,
so the reason I ask is like, was it a case of you'd never met her, so you didn't know what you were missing out on, or did it feel like there was something missing?
It was a little bit of both, to be honest. It was, I grew up with my stepmother, she raised me when I was 5. I grew up in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, which is like the holy land for Muslims all around the world. They do like a pilgrimage, a holy pilgrimage to go there. So I grew up literally away from, like, a mile away from the actual mosque there, right? And then I came to the United States when I was 5 years old. This was when my dad and my birth mom already got a divorce, like when I was about a year old or something like that. And there's a whole backstory to that I found out. But my dad got remarried, and he married my stepmother, who is a U.S. citizen, but her nationality, she was Iraqi. And so I grew up in Paterson, New Jersey, and my stepmother was amazing. Like she did whatever she could to raise me as her own son. She was the main person who raised me, not my father. My father was always traveling, busy, trying to work and what have you. And so that was good. I tried to learn how to fit in. And it was interesting because I learned certain coping skills to survive. Like I learned them early on. And it was like that chameleon thing. Like, okay, what do I need to do to adapt? Because this is a completely new environment for me. And so, by doing so, like, when I went through middle school and high school, I got really good at pretending to be someone that I wasn't, because I just had to adapt in order to survive. And that has served me tremendously. It's served me to fit in with certain crowds that I normally wouldn't fit in. But at the same time, it caused me to lose sense of my true identity. Like I didn't know who the fuck I really was. I was confused. I didn't like, all right, cool. I could fit in with these people. I could fit in, but who is Yaya at the end of the day? And I thought to myself after I graduated high school that if I found my birth mother, that would be the missing piece to the puzzle that would make me feel whole, clear, confident again, like have just better clarity and certainty about myself. And so I made it a mission of mine to find my birth mother. And for 8 years straight, I was looking for her on my own. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't even tell my high school sweetheart, my girlfriend, who's now my wife. I didn't even tell her. I didn't tell my best friends who are like my soul brothers. I didn't tell them. Like it was just something between me and myself. And eventually, like when I almost got to like 25 years old, it was like 8 years later, I kind of gave up, because when you put your time and your energy into something or someone, you expect a specific reward or return or a result. And I just kind of like, after the 8th year, I was like, you know what, maybe it's not meant to be. So I just kind of threw in the towel. And then my best friends and I, we kind of got together, and this is our first time, despite we're all best friends, this is our first time we actually met each other in person, because they were connected through the various decisions that I've made in my life. They were all my best friends, but they didn't know each other. So this was an opportunity for all of them to get to know each other. And so we went to this restaurant, and because of the nature of our relationship, we're very deep. We have very vulnerable conversations. We're intimate in respect to, we see each other for who we really are completely. And one of my friends was like, hey man, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? What's your big dream? What's your vision? And all my friends, they got their turn to express their dreams and vision. Then it was my turn. And then I was like, this is at a height of my career. Like I was 2.5 years into speaking full time, right? Living life on my terms. And I was like, you know what? I could see myself having a fucking amazing TV show. I could, be a best-selling author, have millions of subscribers on YouTube, transforming people's lives. And then my friend interrupts me. He's like, yo, I'm not talking about your professional career. I'm talking about personally. What do you want personally? And that was like the moment where I was like, it was a bit uncomfortable, but I expressed myself and I said, I still want to find my mom. I've been looking for her for 8 years. And they were so shocked that I was looking for her for 8 years. They're like, yo, why don't you tell us? And I was like, I don't know. I guess I don't have the answer for why I didn't tell them. I guess it was my pride, my ego, to save embarrassment. I don't know. But I remember distinctly they basically said, yo, you're not a lone wolf. We're a pack. We can help you find her together. And in that moment, they kind of re-inspired me to go find my mom. And then I was like, all right, cool. I'll go find my mom. And then 3 weeks later, I write a letter. Just to make a long story short, I wanted to post that. It was a thank you letter for my mom giving life to me, to appreciate this amazing life. And then I went to post that. I wanted to post that letter online in the hopes of it going viral. But before I did that, I wanted to translate it from the English language or into the Thai language, just in case my mom didn't know how to read English. And so I just went on Facebook and I wrote, does anybody know how to translate English into Thai to help me find my mom? And I got a bunch of comments, like Facebook comments, but only one person private messaged me. And there was this lady, her name is Beth. And I met her at a school that I went to, that I transferred to actually after I got a full scholarship to Arizona State University. I left this school and I went to this school in Iowa called Maharishi University of Management, where they taught transcendental meditation and yoga as part of the curriculum.
Yeah,
like
isn't that where Jim Carrey gave his speech?
Exactly. That's where Jim Carrey did his speech. That's where Oprah Winfrey did a show there. And it's a really cool space. Like their whole philosophy is harmony exists in diversity and the world is our family. And their main intention is to self-actualize through consciousness-based education. So that drew me, even though that I had a full scholarship to Arizona State University and I was going to become a doctor, that drew me. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to leave everything that I have behind and I'm going to go to the school in Iowa, even though it's $50,000 and my scholarship doesn't transfer. So I just went there and, I got to connect to a bunch of people. I was still thinking I was going to become a doctor. But then I remember meeting this girl it was briefly, and her name was Beth. And she basically messaged me and says, hey, Yaya, I read your post. I don't know anybody very, very well who speaks Thai, but there's this one lady who is actually my transcendental meditation teacher. She's the head teacher in Thailand. Try to reach out to her. Here's her name. And so I was like, all right, cool. So I reached out to this lady in Thailand. And then it turns out her brother has the #1 TV show in Thailand. And what's crazy is that his TV show has a history of reuniting parents and children after being separate. So I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this is crazy because it was too synchronistic. So I'm like, all right, whatever. And then next day I get an email from the TV host basically saying, Yaya, my team and I, we read your letter and we want to help you find your mom, but we can't make any promises. So I said, all right, cool. Like that, it's just happening for me.
It's been 8 years. Like, it's not like.
Yeah, but it's happening the way that it's happening. And this is a really important point here. The way that it's happening, it's so effortless. Like even the best strategy, the best intellectual, intelligent way of me doing certain things, it couldn't have happened this way. Like it was just happening on its own accord. And I knew that I wasn't leading the situation. I was being led. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, like this is interesting. My hands were off. Right. So then literally the next day I get a call on January 30th. And mind you, I hang out with my best friends on January 3rd, just to give you perspective. January 30th, I get a call in the middle of the night, and on the call ID was like a foreign number, and underneath it was the word Thailand. And I thought the TV host was calling me, but I wasn't expecting him to call me so soon. So I was like, hello, hi, is this Yaya? Yes, who's this? Yaya, it's me. I'm your mom. And I'm like, what? it's me, I'm your mom. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this is you. I've been looking for you so long. She goes, I love you, my son. I said, I love you too. And then by the end of the call, we were both in tears. And then immediately afterwards, I get an invite to surprise my mom on national television in Thailand. And so literally about a month later, like, I go to Thailand with my best friends. I raised money to go, because I wanted them to witness what they helped create. Because if it wasn't for them, that wouldn't have happened. And then I bring also my girlfriend with me, and we go there. And so a month later, I'm in a lobby at a hotel. I'm dressed as a bartender, waiting to hear my cue to surprise my mom on national television. And the cue was like cup of orange juice. Like I had to hear the words cup of orange juice to go and then surprise my mom. And then all of a sudden I heard cup of orange juice, please. And then I go, and I remember it clear as day, dude. I'm walking. My mom, she has no idea. She works at the airport in Thailand called Suvarnabhumi Airport.
Yeah.
And we're at a hotel next to it called Nova. I think it was called Novotel or something like that. And she's in the lobby, and there are cameras all around her, and she thinks like this is like a crazy thing, like for her company, for her business, for the airport. And then the guy, his name is Witawat, they're talking back and forth, and she's so engaged in the conversation that by the time that I approach her and I put the orange juice there, she doesn't even notice like it's me. And then I just, like, 5 seconds passed by that felt like an eternity. Yeah. And I just said, hi, Mom. And then she turns around, she looks at me, and it was almost as if in a moment you can experience all the emotions that you can possibly experience as a human being: love, joy, shock, surprise, disbelief, shame, guilt, embarrassment, all happiness, happy and sad emotions in one facial expression. That was what was experienced. And then we just like broke down, and I hugged her. I went down on my knees, and I held her for like a good 5 minutes. And you guys can see, like, if you ever want to watch the reunion, it was all documented by an old friend of mine. It's called thesecretofdestiny.com. You can watch it for free on YouTube. The whole documentary is on there. But it was just such a surreal experience. It was phenomenal. But that was the height of my experience, dude.
That is insane. And like, it's so crazy that for 8 years you try to take the reins and like, and not saying that you did anything wrong, but like you actively try to find her. And then in the matter of 4 weeks, after your friend said like, what's your 5-year goal?
Yep.
After 4 weeks, you were basically face to face with your mom. And through like not trying to control and just going with it, which is, I think there's something to be said there.
There is, you know what? That's the lesson. I think that is the most valuable thing that I've learned, is being able, because, part of the thing that I do in my line of work is teaching people how to be more confident without pretending to be someone that they're not. And, with confidence, the word confidence in Latin actually translates to have complete faith and trust. Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting because in order, like, your whole thing is about the quarter life comeback, right? And in the process of a quarter life crisis, there's that point, and I'm currently going through this. And this is why I feel like it's important to talk about this, because when you lose control, or when I lose control, when we lose control, or we lose certainty, we lose the very thing that we're expecting to happen for us. There is this desire, this need to take back control, hold on to whatever, and take charge again. And I think this is the lesson that I'm learning. It's to be reminded that you're not leading the show, you're being led. Mm-hmm. Whatever you want to call the animating intelligence that governs all things, both, in inanimate objects or animate beings, like, it doesn't matter. There is an intelligence behind that. Some people call it God. Some people call it universe. Yeah. I call it animating intelligence. And it's like being able to completely lean into and trust that in the moment of crisis, in the moment of confusion, in the moment of insecurity or uncertainty, is such a important learning lesson for me that, if I'm being absolutely honest with you, I still haven't figured out. I still haven't leaned into it completely with 100% faith. And I feel like I'm going to keep attracting the necessary people, places, and circumstances and opportunities until I get the hint, like, yo, you're being led. Stop trying to take control of it.
Mm-hmm. It's like
And
the hero's journey, right?
yeah, and that's what's scary, because like, all right, like how much more time can be saved and money can be saved and energy can be saved if we had more trust into that. I'm saying, like, into that power, or more confidence in that, energy. And again, it's easier said than done. But there is that, like, I feel like we could become way more productive if we were more efficient in where we're investing our trust and our control.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, like, trying to, when you were growing up, trying to fit into different scenes and stuff like that. What are your views on the whole fake it till you make it?
I think fake it till you make it is the biggest bullshit lie I've ever heard. No, but like, listen. I understand the value in faking it till you make it, because it could help you sell yourself. It could help you, survive. It could help build trust into people, ironically enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, but here's the thing. Like, I think I'm the master of faking it till I make it. I've done it since I was 5 years old in order to survive, right? Put a smile on my face even though I was depressed, try to act like I'm more to put together than I actually am. But there is a deeper level of trust that you can cultivate in a relationship, whether that relationship is an intimate or personal one, like a friendship or a lover, or whether that relationship is a professional one, like a client, customer, or patient. When you can express your true self and be authentically seen without trying to pretend, posture, position yourself as someone that you're not. Because what you're doing is you're respecting the other for having the intelligence enough to see you. And if, like, this whole faking it till you make it, like, to me personally, and I've done it in the past, and it's gotten me to a certain level of success. And at the same time, it comes at a huge cost. What you're saying subconsciously, and what I've said to myself in the past, is that who we are is not enough. Yep. And that's why we have to pretend to be someone that we're not. That's why we have to please others in order to be successful. That's why we have to prove ourselves in order to be taken seriously. And then there's this whole posture positioning game that is so freaking exhausting. And you wonder why people can't trust you. You wonder why, people can't really see you. You wonder why it's so hard to be vulnerable and intimate in a relationship, is because of this entire facade that we conveniently wear, because we're taught, yo, you got to fake it till you make it. And like, I think in this new age that we're moving into in business and in relationships, your automatic currency is authenticity. Like, that is going to be the thing that's going to trump everything. That is going to be the thing that people want. And even if you look in America, like, look at our recent election, our president, Donald Trump. He's like, I don't have any side. I'm not for Donald Trump or against Donald Trump. I mean, he is who he is. But look at what the majority of people voted for. Authenticity. They didn't look for a perfect leader. They're not looking for perfection. They're looking for someone who's freaking real, whether that real is, not good for humanity or not. They just want someone who's not politically correct. Politics is all about faking it till you make it. It's all about trying to pretend to be someone that you're not. And look at where we're going now. You know what I'm saying? I didn't mean to go on a political rant there, but I just wanted like us to point out, like, look at the consciousness of humanity, where it's trending, where it's moving towards. And I think it's moving towards just like that sense of authenticity.
Yeah, well, you and I met through like circles of entrepreneurs and millennials who are kind of following this part. So that's cool how it's come back now. So apart from like doing whatever you could to fit into different scenes, most people listening to this, their main challenge regarding their parents is like feeling that their parents control them, or that they have pressure to please their parents and like do what they want to do. But you had the opposite, where you didn't really have a other than your stepmom, like a strong parenting structure. So what were some of the things that you did to kind of take control of your own life?
Well, so let me add more clarity into that. So although I had a stepmother who raised me, my father wasn't in the picture, but he kind of was. And so, like, he was kind of like that distant father where he would only show up when it was convenient for him. You know, my stepmother and my father got a divorce when I graduated 8th grade. And so I had to make a decision. Do I live with my stepmother or do I live with my father? And because being a guy, you know, I wanted to have my dad's acceptance and approval. I decided to move with my father. And so I lived with my father when I was like 13, 14 years old, 15 years old. And when I was living with him, it was like the reason why is because I wanted his love, but I confused that as acceptance and approval. So there was this entire part of my life where I wanted to do everything just to make my father proud, you know. And when I went to like high school, after I graduated high school, both my father and my stepmother suggested I become a doctor, even though I thought initially I wanted to become like a personal trainer.
Yeah.
And so I went that whole route. As I was saying before, I got a full scholarship to Arizona State University for my grades, my academics. Then I moved to Iowa. And then one semester short of graduation, I ended up dropping out because I realized I didn't want to become a doctor. And then I told my father that situation. And this was before I even reunited with my mom or found my mom. This was December 2010, January 2011. And I went to go back to New Jersey to go surprise my father. And I told him about my situation, and he was so upset. And, you know, that I didn't go back and finish what I started because I only had one semester left, which was like 3 months left. But I'm the type of guy, like, I can't do anything if my heart is not in it, you know? So he basically gave me an ultimatum: either you finish what you started or you can't really stay here in the house. Jeez. And so I left my dad's house, and I went to one of my friend's house. I went to my friend's home in Hawthorne, New Jersey, and he basically brought me in, and he was the one that actually said, "Yaya, I think you should become like a motivational life coach for young people." And I was like, "Dude, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard." No one's going to listen to a 22-year-old college dropout talk about life. And he's like, "I really think you should take it into consideration. You've always been interested in personal development since you were 14. You're a motivational guy, you know." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever." I slept on it. Next day, I went on Google and I typed in like motivational speaking and life coaching programs for young people. And I saw 2 programs that caught my eye, one by a guy named Josh Shipp. Yep. He's a founder of Youth Speaker University, and the other by a guy named Tony Robbins, who is the co-founder of Robbins. Yeah, I know, right? Who is this guy? So his program is called Robbins Madonna's Center for Strategic Intervention. And that's a mouthful every time I say it. And then I was like, okay, cool. I have only $7 in my bank account. I have $50,000 of debt. I have no job, and I'm living at my friend's house for now. And I was like, I got nothing to lose and everything to gain. So I got a job as a waiter. I took the cash that I got that month, and I invested $750 into both of those coaching programs, the speaking business program and the coaching part. And I did that for 12 months straight, which came out to like $9,000. And everybody was telling me, "Yaya, you should get a real job. Yaya, you shouldn't think about it. You shouldn't do this. You should do that." And I was like, "Nope, I'm doing it my way." So I got a job as a waiter, and then I got a job as an illegal massage therapist that was kind of like postured as a chiropractic assistant.
That sounds way too dodgy.
No. It's not what you think. No happy endings involved, I promise you. But there was I like got a job as I was trying to find a job next to my girlfriend's house because I tried to move to her parents' house. And it's funny because talk about like faking it till you make it. And so check this out. This is a side note. I'm going on a detour, but remind me to come back. As I was building my speaking career and my coaching practice, right, I needed money, but I wanted something that was stable, that I didn't have to travel so far for the being a waiter position. So I was like, well, I know a lot about physiology and health. I know human anatomy pretty well. I've been training my body since I was 14, 15 years old. So it's like, let me see if I could get a job as like an assistant, a chiropractor's assistant. So I called a chiropractor's office right next to my girlfriend's house. And I was like, "Hey, are you guys looking for like a chiropractic assistant?" And she was like, "No, we're not, but let me double check." And then she comes back on the phone. She's like, okay, can you come on Friday? I called in on a Monday. She's like, can you come in on Friday for an interview? I was like, oh, yeah, okay, no problem. So I go in for the interview on Friday, and I meet this guy. He's a very charismatic, 6'2", tall, handsome dude. And he's like, yeah, come into my office. So we go into his office. And then we're just like going back and forth, and we're shooting the breeze, building rapport, connecting. And he was like, listen, man, I think you're a nice guy. I think you're really, really cool. But I'm looking for a licensed massage therapist, for my practice. Are you a licensed massage therapist? And this is the moment, right? This is a defining moment. Do I fake it till I make it? Or do I just be honest? And so I just like that 5 seconds felt like an eternity as well. And I just looked at him. I was like, listen, Doc, I'm not a licensed massage therapist, and I don't have the credibility or the experience that you're looking for to become a massage therapist. That being said, I know about the human anatomy and physiology better than most people that I know. I'm really good with people, and I'm extremely, extremely a hard worker. Like, if you tell me what you need to do, I can guarantee you I'll be your best employee within a month's time. Is that something that you're looking for? And he just looked at me kind of shocked, because he was like, whoa, like what? Like that was pretty confident. He was like, okay, you start on Monday, $13 an hour. And I was like, done. So I got a job as a chiropractic assistant, but he would teach me how to understand the body, what to do like with massage and all that. So when I say illegal massage therapist, it wasn't like it wasn't like that. But I ended up building people skills. I ended up connecting with a lot of people and understanding the human body in a different way, in a way that I never would have thought. But anyway, so that served me as I was building my career as a speaker for about a year. And then after 1 year's time, I went full time as a speaker. And then I started traveling all around the world. And I've been doing it for like 6-7 years now. So it's been awesome. Yeah. So I don't know if that answered your question, but in that process, I disappointed my father. And also within that process, I not only reunited with my birth mother, but a few months later, my birth mother abandoned me again. So she basically, I got her a ticket to come visit me in America, and she was staying at my girlfriend's parents' house because they had a guest room. And long story short, she was there. She was supposed to stay there for 10 days. On the 5th day, something really crazy happened. She got so upset, something triggered her, and she ended up ripping up the only baby picture I had of her and I that I framed right by her bed, and she threw it in my face and said, "You're not my son." And that crushed me. I felt like worthless. And then like a lot of things happened after that. But I wasn't the same emotionally. I wasn't the same mentally, even though I try to fake it till I made it, like act like everything was okay. The grass is greener on the other side. But the truth is the grass is never greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it. And I wasn't watering my plant. And so I realized a few months after that incident happened, I proposed to Kate on our 10-year anniversary. And, she said, yes, she became my fiance, and that was awesome. And then I go to invite my father to come to my wedding. So I fly out to Florida where he was living, and invite my father to come to my wedding. And I said, Kate and I would love to have you there. And my dad is a very religious Muslim. He's very religious. He's stuck in his ways. And, I respect that. That's his life. And he basically said, that depends. Are you having a Muslim wedding or are you not? And I said, at first I was like, I faked it. I was like, oh yeah, of course. Why would you I'm Muslim and da-da-da-da. And then I just 3 days later, I flew back home, and I was like, after tears coming out, I just did the biggest thing that I feared. And that was confront my father and tell him the truth about my beliefs that have always been with me since I was 14, but I always walked on eggshells around my father because I didn't want to lose whatever relationship that I had left with him. And I just told my dad, I was like, Dad, I'm not a Muslim the way that you want me to be. If you want to call me a Muslim, you might as well call me a Christian, a Hindu, a Jew, or a Buddhist, because I believe in living by the virtues and the principles of every messenger, but not calling myself a name. And then he was like, you're not my son. And so my father and my birth mother left me like within less of a year's time. And so how does a person go manage a successful business and, you know, try to build a successful future with his soon to be wife, and now both his birth parents disowned him by choice? You know, like that was very, very tough. And so I went rock bottom, and I started, you know, investing all my savings, all my money into therapy, into coaching, into programs, into body work, into whatever I could get my hands on so I can build my self-esteem, my self-worth, my confidence, you know, back from scratch. Because I felt like nothing, like everything was gone. I felt like such a fraud speaking on stage, because when I would speak on stage, I would share only the good part of what happened between my mom and I. You know what I'm saying? I would never share what would happen afterwards. Yeah. And so, yeah, that all happened. And it was just like, it was very revealing for me, because like this is 4 years later after that happened, I'm slowly getting back into that space where I can have that sense of renewed confidence in myself and that sense of trust, and I'm okay, you know. But there's that space of like, oh man, like, am I going to be okay? Mm-hmm. Like after, like if you've been cheated on in a relationship, these are the clients that I've worked with, like my coaching clients, right? They always have this fear that, like, will it happen again? Even if it's with someone completely different who never hurt them before or whatever, it's like, will it happen again? And I feel like that wound, that scar is there and has always been there, but now it's slowly healing. And now I'm regaining my sense of faith and trust and confidence in this animating intelligence and this higher power in myself, in other people. There's something to be said about having confidence in being guided, in like trusting. Because if you really think about it, people who struggle with a lack of confidence, what they really struggle with is self-doubt, anxiety, worry, mm-hmm. you know, all that kind of stuff. And that all comes from being uncomfortable with the thing that leads to uncertainty. Yeah. Imagine. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead. We were going to say something?
I was going to say, like, for people listening, what are some actionable sort of steps to take to increase their confidence? But yeah, it sounds like we're getting into that now.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I would say is like, listen to the masterclass that I have as a gift for a lot of people who are interested in confidence work. Is if you go to theconfidencemasterclass.com, or excuse me, theconfidenceblueprint.com. Mm-hmm. If you go to theconfidenceblueprint.com, there's a 30-minute high value, high content video on like understanding how confidence is applied in your life and how you can start building it from scratch, not from a place of faking it till you make it, but from a true, authentic place. And I think the most important thing when it comes to confidence is knowing yourself, right? Everybody says know, but how do you actually get to know yourself? How do you actually understand the value of who you are? Mm-hmm. Because one of the biggest things that I struggle with in my own business is not knowing who I was, who I am, and who I'm becoming. And this is really interesting because I ended up having a shit ton of strategies to build my businesses, right? But strategy before identity is a recipe for chaos, confusion, and wasted time, energy, and money. And understand that you're valuable because you exist. But if you grew up in a world where it's like, okay, you have to prove or measure your value, you have to do all that kind of stuff, it's going to be very, very challenging, because every strategy that I would give you is just going to be a Band-Aid approach. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure, you might sale. Yeah, you might get the validation. You might get all that kind of stuff, but you're not really building your confidence and your self-esteem and your self-worth from an authentic place.
Yeah, and so it's all just like information and not transformation.
Exactly. Yeah, man.
Cool. Yeah. I do want to be mindful of the time, but I do have some final questions at the end. So just kind of the first thing that comes to mind in a sentence or two. The first one is, what do you wish you'd been told early in your 20s?
What do I wish I'd been told earlier in my 20s? I have it ingrained in my I don't even know what to call this, but it's like an ergonomic design for my laptop that gets like stood up like a certain way, and right behind it says "Trust yourself." Mm-hmm. Trust yourself, Yaya. That would be it. Like, trust yourself.
I love
Trust
it.
yourself enough to understand that everything is going to happen the way it's going to happen, and like you're being guided. Like that is, and in fact, like that's not something that I would just wish I told myself in my 20s or somebody told me in my 20s. That's something that I wish someone would tell me right now. That's what I need to hear right now as I'm transitioning
How old are
into
you
this
right
next
now? Just for
28 years old.
Okay, got it. Yeah, same as me. Cool.
Yeah. Yep.
What is the greatest opportunity for quarter lifers today?
The greatest opportunity for quarter lifers today is, I would say, to define and create whatever it is they feel inspired to.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like, yeah, the greatest opportunity for people like us is our ability to serve by being seen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I think this is a very powerful point, and this is something that I do my best to live by, is how can I be how can I serve as many people as I can by being as transparent as I can? Because my sense of expertise doesn't necessarily come from me being an expert, in a specific topic, but it comes from me sharing my process with people, and that cultivates trust, that cultivates a level of influence with a few select people here and there. And I think we live in a time where we live in the age of transparency and authenticity, and the best way for you to build a brand or build a business is by you sharing yourself or serving by being seen. Like, don't hold anything back. That's one of the reasons why, even though Gary Vaynerchuk and I are completely opposites, like when it comes to how we do certain things, one thing I do appreciate about him is his whole he's authentic to who he is, and he's all about documenting the process versus creating it. And that's what I'm saying is, like, share yourself with people. Like, even like, don't share your story after you achieved your success. Share your story as you're progressing your comeback or your success. And I think a lot of people are hesitant to do that. And I think that is your greatest opportunity as a quarter lifer.
Yeah, love it. Before I get to the final question, where can people go to find out more about you and hang out with you online and all that good stuff?
You know what? Let's talk. I've been so inaccessible when I was a speaker. Like, I would distance myself from a lot of people just because of my time, and just because I felt like people were trying to get something out of me. That came from my own childhood wounds and not trusting other people. I feel like, please reach out to me on Facebook. Let's connect. I want to hear who you are. I want to hear your story. I want to see how I can support you. So find me on Facebook, Yahya Bakkar, and that's Yahya, B as in boy, Akkar. You can see out, if you want to check out my speaking business work in the past, you can go to yayabakkar.com. Or if you're interested in confidence coaching, that's kind of what I do on the side. And I also help high achieving entrepreneurs who have everything on paper, but have lacked their health and their relationship life balance there. Mm-hmm. You could go to theconfidenceblueprint.com and check out my work there. So, yeah.
I've got one more question before I get to that. I just want to take a second to acknowledge you for coming on today and sharing your story so openly. But beyond just that, like, going through a really tough upbringing and, turning that into your personal journey and the speaking career that you created, and now being comfortable with, like, not knowing what's next or how to get there, but kind of sharing the process as you go. And just kind of trusting those signs and inspiring others. It's really, really cool, man.
Thank you.
The final question I have is, what one thing can listeners do this week to start creating their own quarter life comeback?
Meditate.
Whoa.
Honestly, listen. It's such a hard thing for me to say, and when I say meditate, I'm not practicing what I'm preaching, because I go on and off, right? But here's what I've learned, and I'll just leave you guys with this. I'm a high achiever. Achieving comes easy to me. Hustling comes easy to me. Doing comes easy to me, right? The work is not hard for me. It's just like, boom, okay, I'll do it. What I've learned is that the greatest opportunities that came into my life and the greatest connections and synchronicities didn't come from me doing something. It didn't come from me initiating something. It came from me sitting back and allowing things to come to me. And I'm noticing, like, meditation even though, I wish I valued it as much as I do, like, becoming successful or working hard or, all that kind of stuff. Meditation has been the key cornerstone of me developing patience and perspective into, realizing that my life is so much bigger than this one moment or this quarter or this season that I'm going through. Mm-hmm. And that, I think that is what's needed, because that will help you with your anxiety. That would help you with your self-doubt. That would help you with everything. And I notice I start freaking losing it. And my comeback doesn't become a comeback. It becomes a crisis when I don't have that patience and perspective for the long haul. So I would say, again, if there's one thing that I can suggest, and I have my own guided meditations that you can listen to, but even if you don't listen to my guided meditations through my confidence course, meditate. Take a moment and value that shit. More importantly, if the greatest people, the most successful people like Oprah, Russell Simmons, David Lynch, Paul Newman, all these people, Deepak Chopra, they say meditation is something powerful, or whether it's active or passive, do it, because the return on investment will be something that is so much more powerful than anything that you can measure on your own through your conscious mind.
I love it. Yahya Bakkar, thank you so much for coming to the Quarter Life Comeback.
Thank you, Brian. It was a pleasure. I love you guys. Peace.
So there you have it, guys and girls. That wraps up episode 85 of the Quarter Life Comeback podcast. And a big thanks once again to Yaya for coming on the show and sharing so vulnerably and openly about his story. If you like this one, please share it around with your friends on social media and shoot me a tweet at Brian Tier to let me know your biggest takeaway. For me, it was the fact that you don't and probably shouldn't fake it till you make it, but instead focus on learning about who you are as a person. And once you know yourself, then you can look at adding these strategies and growing and developing. As always, you can get the links and resources we mentioned in this episode at briantier.com/085, and make sure you subscribe over at quarterlifecomeback.com to get all these episodes as soon as they go live. Final shout out again, and that is, if you're not on the Facebook group, make sure you hop on over there and come and join us, where we share some behind the scenes stuff of how we like to get things done, how to improve your performance and make time for the important things. You can find that at briantier.com/FB group. Thanks once again for joining me this week. I appreciate you so much. And until next time, keep creating your quarter life comeback.